Linda, the goddess I secretly loved throughout university, broke up. She took the initiative to ask Duke out, and we drowned our sorrows in alcohol. But unexpectedly, Linda was using me to ease her pain. That night, we were entangled all night, utterly exhausted. I originally thought my wish had finally come true, but after that final frenzy, she went to M country and never looked back. When my phone vibrated on the table, I was doing the final debugging on the code. The name Linda flashed on screen. My heart skipped a beat, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Unmoving, 3 years after graduation. This number lay quietly in my contacts, like a tomb without a headstone. We hadn't deleted each other, but we hadn't contacted each other either. I thought I would never receive her call again in this lifetime. The vibration stopped. I breathed a sigh of relief, but felt a hole in my chest. I grabbed my water glass and took a big gulp of cold water, trying to suppress the unwarranted agitation. A few seconds later, the phone rang again. It was still her. I stared at that name, images of the 4 years of university flashing quickly in my mind. Her quiet profile in the library, a bottle of water she handed me by the basketball court, the weight of her leaning on my shoulder at the graduation party because she had drunk too much. In the end, I swiped to answer the call. Hello? My voice was a little dry. Duke, it's me. The voice on the other end of the phone was a bit hoarse, with a hint of fatigue, but it was still the familiar voice. Yeah, I know. There was a moment of silence. I could hear the sound of wind on her side, and the faint sound of car horns. Are you free now? She asked cautiously. I just got back to the country. I want to find someone for a drink. I subconsciously glanced at the dense code on the computer screen. The project was at its most critical stage, and I hadn't slept much in 3 days. I was about to say I wasn't free. I broke up, she said softly, as if stating something unrelated to herself. Those 3 words were like a small stone, creating ripples in my heart. I secretly loved her throughout university, watching her get together with that senior named Leo, watching them go to the same big company together after graduation. I thought they would get married. Okay. The words of refusal circled on my tongue, and I swallowed them down. Where? She said the name of a bar, not far from me. I turned off the computer, and when I stood up, my legs were a little numb. Walking to the window, looking at the busy traffic downstairs, it felt a little unreal. Linda, she's back. She broke up. The first person she looked for was me. This realization made my heart beat uncontrollably faster. I changed into a clean t-shirt and scratched my messy hair in the mirror. The person in the mirror had dark circles under their eyes and stubble on their face, looking haggard and depressed. I smiled wryly. Oh well, she's seen me like this before. When I was rushing to finish a draft for a design competition in university, I didn't leave the dormitory for a week, and she brought me food. At that time, she was standing at the door, the sun shining on her, so beautiful that people didn't dare to look directly at her. I shook my head, suppressing these memories. Don't think too much, Duke. She just broke up and is looking for an old classmate to confide in, a safe, hassle-free, old classmate who will always be behind her. The bar was dimly lit and the music was soft. I saw Linda sitting in a corner booth at a glance. She was wearing a simple white dress, her long hair draped over her shoulders, no makeup, looking even thinner than she was in university. There was a glass of wine in front of her, but she didn't touch it, just quietly staring out the window in a daze. I walked over and sat down opposite her. She came back to her senses, saw me, and forced a smile. You're here. Yeah. I ordered a glass of the same whiskey. When did you come back? Yesterday. She picked up her glass, took a sip, and frowned slightly, obviously not used to the taste of a strong liquor. I haven't gotten over the jet lag yet. Why did you suddenly come back? What about work? I quit. She replied simply. I broke up with him too, so there's no need to stay there. The him she was talking about was naturally Leo. I didn't know how to respond. Comfort her? Ask her why they broke up? Neither seemed appropriate. Our relationship hadn't reached that point. Let's not talk about that. She seemed to see my embarrassment and proactively changed the subject. How about you? How have you been these past few years? Still doing that? Game design of yours? Yeah. I nodded. I started a small studio myself. Amazing. You're a boss now. She smiled, this time more sincerely. I knew you could do it. Her light-hearted praise dispelled a lot of the frustration I felt about the project stalling. That's how pathetic I am. Just messing around, making a living. I mock myself. She didn't say anything more, just picked up her glass and drank half of it in one gulp. The violent cough made her pretty face flushed. I pulled out a tissue and handed it to her. Drink slower. It's okay. She waved her hand, her eyes filled with mist. Duke, Do you think I'm a failure? I looked at her, and her eyes showed a vulnerability and confusion I had never seen before. In my impression, Linda was always radiant. She was the campus belle, a student union cadre, and a top student admired by all the teachers. She was always confident, proper, and seemed to be able to handle anything. Why do you say that? For him, I gave up my recommendation for graduate school and followed him to M-Country. I thought we would have a future. She lowered her head, her voice getting softer and softer. And what happened? He told me last month that he had fallen in love with his female colleague Sarah. Her voice was calm, but her hand under the table was clenched tightly, her knuckles turning white. He said it was too tiring to be with me. He said I was too strong, didn't know how to show weakness, unlike that girl who needed him. Linda looked up, her eyes red. Isn't it ridiculous? I worked hard, wanted to work hard with him, but it turned out to be my fault. My heart felt heavy. I felt it was unfair for her, and also felt a touch of sad relief for myself. He doesn't deserve you, I said. That was the only thing I could say. She seemed to have heard something hilarious, and suddenly laughed, laughing and crying at the same time. She didn't wail, just silently shed tears, one by one, hitting the table. I was at a loss, wanting to pat her on the shoulder, but I raised my hand halfway and put it down again. In the end, I just pushed the tissue pack in front of her. She didn't take it, letting the tears flow. Duke, drink with me. She picked up the bottle and filled my glass, and filled her own glass. Tonight, we won't go home until we're drunk. I looked at her red eyes and nodded. That night, we drank a lot of alcohol, from whiskey to tequila to cocktails I couldn't even name. We talked a lot about things back in university. Talking about the time our group stayed up all night to make a model. Talking about the time I almost passed out after running the 3,000 meters at the sports meet, and she gave me a chocolate. We didn't mention Leo, and we didn't mention the future. As the alcohol took hold, everything around me started to spin. I saw Linda's face swaying in front of me, her eyes sparkling, like they were quenched with starlight. Duke, she suddenly leaned closer, the smell of alcohol in her breath hitting my face. Do you know? Actually, I always knew you liked me. My brain buzzed, and I instantly sobered up by half. She put a finger against my lips, her movements gentle, but with an undeniable force. Don't talk. Her eyes were blurred. On the day of university graduation, did you want to confess to me? I didn't speak. After the graduation party, I had indeed prepared a lot of words, but when I saw Leo come to pick her up, those words all rotted in my stomach. You're just too good at holding back. She sighed, her finger sliding from my lips to my chin, gently stroking it. Duke, why aren't you a little bad to me? I looked at her face, so close to me, smelling the faint perfume mixed with the smell of alcohol on her body, and the last string in my brain snapped. I grabbed her hand and then kissed her. Her lips were very soft, with a spiciness of alcohol and a hint of sweetness. She didn't push me away, but awkwardly responded. The kiss got deeper and deeper, more and more chaotic. I don't know who suggested leaving first. By the time I came to my senses, we were already standing in my small rented apartment. The door closed behind me, isolating all the sounds of the outside world. She leaned against the door, looking up at me, her eyes filled with an unshakable fog. Duke, she called my name again. Tonight, don't be a good person, okay? I lowered my head and kissed her again. That night, we were like two wounded beasts, licking each other's wounds in the most primitive way, warming each other, entangled, fallen, exhausted. In the gaps between countless frenzies, I held her, feeling like I was dreaming. I had finally obtained the goddess I had dreamed of, even if I knew it was just an accident after getting drunk, even if I knew the dream would end after dawn. But at least at this moment, she belonged to me. The last time I was so tired that I couldn't even move my fingers. I held the warm body in my arms and whispered in her ear, Linda, stay, okay? She didn't answer. Her breathing was even. She seemed to be asleep. I closed my eyes and fell into a deep sleep as well. This was the most peaceful sleep I had had in years. The next day, I was woken up by the sunlight. The hangover headache made me frown. I subconsciously reached out to hug the person next to me, but felt only empty space. I suddenly opened my eyes. The side was empty. The sheets still had a trace of wrinkles and a perfume smell that didn't belong to me. But Linda was gone. My heart sank, and a bad feeling welled up. I threw back the covers and got out of bed, my body still bearing the traces of last night's frenzy. Living room, kitchen, bathroom. No one. The house was eerily quiet. On the table, next to my phone, was a note. It was on a hotel notepad. The handwriting was delicate and distant. Duke, I'm sorry, forget about last night. I'm leaving, go to a place far away, don't miss me. No signature, but I knew it was her. Forget about last night. I'm leaving, don't miss me. Every word was like a small hammer, hitting my heart hard. I rushed to the window and pulled open the curtains. People were coming and going downstairs, the traffic flowing endlessly, whereas her shadow. I grabbed my phone and dialed her number. Hello, the number you dialed is switched off. The cold, mechanical female voice came, making me feel cold all over. I didn't give up and opened WeChat, wanted to send her a message. The red exclamation mark and a line of small words stung my eyes. The other party is no longer your friend. She deleted me. I slumped to the ground, still clutching the flimsy note in my hand. So what was this? A farewell fuck? She broke up, was in a bad mood, and found me, an honest and good-natured secret admirer, to vent. After venting, she wiped her mouth, pulled up her pants, and left, and by the way, blacklisted all my contact information, cutting things off cleanly. She wasn't even willing to say goodbye to me in person. Did she feel embarrassed? Or did she think I wasn't worthy of her personally saying goodbye? I thought I had finally got my wish, but it turned out that I was just a tool for her to say goodbye to the past, used and discarded. I looked at the mess in the house, the air still smelling of her, and suddenly felt extremely disgusted. I rushed into the bathroom, turned on the shower, and cold water poured down from the top of my head, making me shiver. I desperately scrubbed my body, as if that would wash away everything that happened last night, wash away all the traces she left. But it was no use. The feeling of being used and abandoned, like vines, was tightly wrapped around my heart, tightening, making it almost impossible for me to breathe. I leaned against the cold tile wall and slid to the ground, letting the cold water wash over me. I laughed, laughing at myself for being stupid, laughing at myself for being naive. The goddess I had secretly loved for so many years, the perfect and flawless being in my heart, turned out to be like this. It was my own fault. It was me who put her on the altar. Now, she personally stepped down from the altar, slapped me, and then turned and left. Well, at least the dream should wake up. I turned off the water, stood up, and looked at the drenched, disheveled man in the mirror. Something in his eyes was broken. For the next 3 months, I lived like a walking corpse. I locked myself in the studio, writing code day and night. When I was tired, I slept on the cot. And when I woke up, I continued. I used work to numb myself, not giving myself any time to think. Zach, my studio partner and college roommate, couldn't stand it anymore and dragged me out for a drink. Are you fucking kidding me? He slammed a bottle of beer in front of me. Turning yourself into a ghost for a woman? I didn't say anything, picked up the bottle, and chugged. I told you a long time ago, women like Linda, we ordinary people can't handle. She's the moon in the sky. You can only look at her. If you try to grab her, you'll fall to your death. She's not the moon. I put down the bottle, looked at the bubbling white foam in the glass, and my voice was hoarse. She's just a normal woman, selfish, hypocritical. Oh, figured it out? Zach raised an eyebrow. If you figured it out, then get your ass back together. The studio's almost gone because of you. The client has called 800 times. When is your proposal coming out? I picked up the beer and took another drink soon. After that day, I seemed to have really figured it out. I stopped torturing myself and started eating and sleeping on time. I threw away everything about Linda, college photos, the books she gave me, everything. Then, I poured all my energy into the game project I had put aside for a long time. It was an open-world adventure game that I had been thinking about for a long time. The worldview and core gameplay were already formed, but due to funding and technical limitations, it was stuck in the demo stage. I put all the money I had saved for Linda, along with all the studio's working capital, into it. Zach cursed me for being crazy. Duke, this is gambling. If we lose, we'll have to beg under the overpass. We won't lose. I looked at the character model on the computer screen, my eyes firm. This is my only chance. I disbanded the studio's original outsourcing team, leaving only me, Zach, and Chloe, a newly graduated art girl. The three of us squeezed into that less than 50 square meter rented house and began 2 years of closed-door development. It was a dark and bleak time. Every day we faced countless bugs and redoing the plans. The funds were quickly used up to save money. We only ate 2 meals a day. Instant noodles were the staple food. During the most difficult time, Mr. Smith came to collect the rent, and we couldn't even come up with the money for next month. Zach wavered. Duke, why don't we just give up? We can sell the current version and at least get some of our money back. I didn't agree. I took the demo we made and ran to more than a dozen investment companies, only to be rejected countless times. They all said that our idea was good, but the team was too small and the risk was too great. Just when I was about to despair, a newly established investment company found us. Their person in charge was named Jessie, a woman who looked a few years younger than me. She was wearing a crisp professional suit, sitting at our rickety conference table, and it only took her half an hour to read all our information. The game is very interesting. She looked up at me, her eyes sharp, but what makes you think you can do it? I pushed my plan, the hundreds of sketches I drew, the hundreds of thousands of words of worldview settings I wrote, all in front of her because of this. I talked to her for 2 hours. I talked about my game concept, my core gameplay, my vision for this world. By the end, my mouth was dry, my voice was hoarse. Jessie listened quietly the whole time without interrupting me. When I finished, she stood up and held out her hand to me. "Mr. Duke, I admire your talent and your all-or-nothing courage." The corners of her mouth curled into a smile. 5 million. Angel round, giving up 20% of the shares. How about it? I was stunned. Zach excitedly pinched me next to me. I looked into Jessie's eyes, which contained admiration, ambition, and a kind of similar aura. I shook her hand. "Pleasure to work with you." At that moment, I knew that my game was alive. With Jessie's investment, our studio went from rags to riches. We moved into a spacious and bright office building and recruited new team members. Jessie brought not only money, but also resources and connections. She helped us connect with the best promotion channels and contacted top technical consultants, Dr. Allen. She was like a parachuting commander, quickly integrating our makeshift team into a regular army. I was still the person in charge of the project, mainly focusing on R&D. Jessie was responsible for the company's operations and all external affairs. The two of us, like two tightly meshed gears, drove the company's machine to operate at high speed. As we spent more time together, I found that Jessie was completely different from the investors I imagined. She was unpretentious and would stay up late with us to work overtime and eat takeout together. She would silently make me a cup of coffee when I was racking my brains over a technical problem. She would also look at me silently when I lost my temper because of too much pressure and then analyze the problem with me one by one after I calmed down. Once, a serious bug appeared in one of the game's core modules, causing the entire progress to be delayed by a month. The team's morale was at its lowest point. I locked myself in the office, smoking one cigarette after another. Jessie pushed the door opened the window, and dispersed the smoke. Worrying won't solve the problem. She put a file on my desk. I contacted the CTO of Qingtian Technology, and he agreed to have a video conference with us tomorrow to see where the problem is. I looked at her, feeling a little touched. Qingtian Technology is one of the largest game companies in China, and their CTO is a legendary figure. I didn't know how Jessie managed to get him to agree. "Thank you," I said sincerely. "We are partners." She smiled. "Your business is my business." She turned to leave, and I stopped her. "Jessie, why? Did you invest in us in the first place?" This was the question I had always wanted to ask. She leaned against the doorframe, thought for a while, and said, "Because I saw my own shadow in you. My dad always wanted me to take over the family's real estate business, but I didn't want to. I like games, I like the internet, so I took a sum of money my mom gave me and started this investment company myself." She looked at me, her eyes with something indescribable. "The first project I invested in was you. If you fail, I'll have to obediently go home and sell houses." I didn't expect her to have such a background, so we're also gambling. She shrugged, her tone relaxed. "However, I believe in my vision, and I believe in you." That night, we talked a lot. For the first time, I told someone about my unrequited love in college, about that ridiculous night, and about Linda's departure without saying goodbye. I thought she would think I was ridiculous, but she just listened quietly and then said, "She will regret it. It doesn't matter anymore." I stubbed out the cigarette. "I just want to make the game well now." "Right?" She nodded, her eyes bright. "What you have to do is stand at a height that she can no longer reach and let her look up to you." Her words, like a beam of light, illuminated the last bit of darkness in my heart. Yes, why should I wallow in the past? What I have to do is create a future that belongs to me. Another year passed. Our game, Lost Era, finally completed its internal testing and began preparing to go online. After the initial promotional videos were released, they caused a huge response among players. The number of pre-registrations exceeded 5 million in just 1 week. Everyone was excited, except for me, who became more and more anxious. On the night before the launch, I was alone in the server room, checking the data over and over again. Jessie walked in with 2 cups of coffee. "Still busy?" "Yeah, just confirming one last time." She handed me a cup of coffee. "Don't be too nervous. We've done everything we can." I took the coffee, took a sip. The hot liquid slid down my throat, slightly dispelling the chill. I'm afraid, I said softly, I'm afraid the players won't like it, afraid that our 2 years of hard work will be wasted. Duke, she called my name, looking at me very seriously. What you've made is the most ambitious and best game in China in the last 5 years. You have to have confidence in it, and you have to have confidence in yourself. Her gaze was bright, with a kind of convincing power. My heart slowly calmed down. Thank you, Jessie. Here we go again. She smiled helplessly. We are partners. We sat side by side next to the cold server cabinet, watching the data stream constantly jumping on the screen. Neither of us spoke again, but I felt very at ease. At 10 o'clock the next morning, Lost Era was launched globally simultaneously. I was in the office, staring at the online numbers skyrocketing in the background. My palms were sweating. 10 minutes, 100,000, half an hour, 500,000, 1 hour, 1 million. The number of concurrent users exceeded 1 million. A deafening cheer erupted in the office. Zach hugged a programmer and jumped up and down. Chloe cried with excitement. Jessie walked up to me and held out her hand. I was stunned for a moment, then raised my hand and high-fived her. We did it, she said, her eyes shining. Yeah, I nodded, my throat choked. We did it. Lost Era was a hit. Overnight, it swept the entire internet. The front pages of major game media were all reporting on us, and player communities were full of discussions about the game. The light of domestic games. This is a real AAA masterpiece. I'm willing to call it a masterpiece. Looking at these reviews, I felt like I was dreaming. Our 3 years of hard work, our persistence that we bet everything on, finally paid off. Everything that followed was natural. The game's revenue hit new highs, and the company's valuation also rose. We became the most dazzling dark horse in the game industry. My name and Jessie's name also began to appear frequently in various financial magazines and industry summits. I went from a homebody who wrote code in a rented house to the Duke General in other people's mouths. I changed cars, changed houses, and put on expensive suits, but I always felt that all of this was not real. Until once, I went back to college to attend the school's anniversary celebration. The president spoke on the stage, mentioning our company, mentioning my name, calling me an outstanding alumnus. Under the stage, there were rows of young junior students, their eyes filled with envy and admiration, just like back then, when I looked at Linda on the stage. At that moment, I truly realized that I was really different. I was no longer the humble admirer who followed behind Linda and didn't even dare to confess. I had already reached the height she once stood, even higher. The company wanted to expand its overseas business, and the first stop was the United States. There was a very strong distribution company there called Star Ring Entertainment, and they were very interested in distributing the overseas version of Lost Era. The preliminary online meetings had been going well. Finally, the other party proposed that our core team fly to the United States to finalize the final details of the cooperation in person. Jessie and I, with several department heads, boarded a flight to the United States. This was my first time going to the United States. When the plane landed, it was afternoon in the local area, the sun was good, and the sky was blue. I looked at the unfamiliar city outside the window, and my heart was calm. I thought that this country, this city, had long been meaningless to me. Star Ring Entertainment headquarters were in a magnificent office building. We were taken to a spacious conference room. The other team soon entered, led by a middle-aged man in his 40s who looked sharp. He shook hands with us warmly and introduced himself. President Duke, President Jessie, I've heard so much about you. I'm Roger, the CEO of Star Ring. After the pleasantries, everyone sat down. Now, before we officially begin, please allow me to introduce the main person in charge of this project. Roger smiled and clapped his hands. The conference room door was pushed open. A woman in a black professional suit walked in. She wore delicate makeup. Her hair was pinned up, making her look capable and mature. She walked to Roger's side and smiled slightly at us. Hello, everyone. I'm Linda, the project director for this collaboration. When she looked up and our eyes met, I saw the smile on her face freeze. In her eyes was undisguised shock and a hint of panic. And I just looked at her calmly. My heartbeat didn't even quicken. It was as if this woman in front of me was just an ordinary friend I used to know, but hadn't seen in a long time. No, not even a friend. Jessie, who was beside me, seemed to notice something. She glanced at me, then at Linda, a hint of understanding in her eyes. She unobtrusively touched my hand, then stood up, reached out to Linda, and smiled appropriately. Director Linda, hello. I'm Jessie. Linda seemed to snap back to reality. She hurriedly reached out and shook Jessie's hand. President Jessie, hello. Her gaze, however, remained fixed on me. There were so many complex emotions in that gaze. inquiry, confusion, and something I couldn't understand. She probably never imagined that the spare tire she had used and discarded back then would reappear before her in this way. She never thought that the penniless little programmer back then would now be President Duke, someone she needed to look up to and strive to collaborate with. This world is truly wonderful. The meeting began. Linda quickly adjusted her state and began to introduce their distribution plan. She was indeed very professional. The PPT was beautifully done, the explanation was clear and fluent, and the market analysis was also on point. I could tell that she had grown a lot in the past few years. No longer the girl who only knew how to hide behind others and cry. I didn't say a word throughout, just listened quietly. Most of the questions and exchanges were done by Jesse. I only spoke at the end, when everyone thought the meeting was about to end, and said lightly, "Director Linda's plan sounds very good." All eyes were focused on me. Linda's body tensed almost imperceptibly. "But I changed the subject. This is just a plan that sounds good. I don't see anything that impresses me, anything irreplaceable." My voice wasn't loud, but it was especially clear in the quiet conference room. Star Ring Entertainment is indeed one of the best distribution companies in Country M. But it's not the only one. I have a long list of companies that want to distribute Lost Era. I leaned back in my chair, my eyes sweeping over everyone in the room, and finally stopping on Linda's face. "So I want to know, why should I choose you?" There was dead silence in the conference room. Roger's face looked a little ugly. Linda's lips moved, as if she wanted to say something. But in the end, she didn't say anything. Her face paled little by little. I saw her hand on the table clench into a fist. How similar this scene was. Only, this time, our positions were completely reversed. I stood up and straightened my suit. "That's all for today's meeting. I hope that next time, I can see something more sincere, something that can truly impress us." I turned to Jesse. "Let's go." After saying that, I walked out of the conference room without looking back. From beginning to end, I didn't look at Linda again. As we brushed past each other, I smelled the familiar scent of her perfume. But this time, it could no longer stir my heart. Back at the hotel, Jesse made me a cup of tea. "How do you feel?" she asked. "How do I feel about what?" I asked knowingly. "Slaughtering your ex-girlfriend?" "Oh no, not even your ex-girlfriend. Does it feel good to slaughter the woman who once hurt you?" She joked. I looked at the night view outside the window and remained silent for a moment. "I don't feel anything," I said truthfully. "It's like watching a stranger perform. That's good." Jesse breathed a sigh of relief. "I was worried that you would fall back in love and be soft-hearted." I laughed. "Do you think I'm that kind of person?" "You used to be." She said bluntly. "Now it's hard to say." I knew she was joking. "You knew all along, didn't you?" I asked. "Knew what?" "Knew that the project director of Star Ring was her." Jessie raised her eyebrows. "I only found out today. But before coming here, I did check her information. I knew she worked at Star Ring, and her position was not low, but I didn't expect it to be such a coincidence that she would be in charge of our project." "Why did you check on her?" "Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated." Jessie took a sip of tea and said slowly, "I always have to know if my partner has a time bomb hidden in their heart." I looked at her, feeling a little touched. "Don't worry," I said. "That bomb has already been defused." The next day, we didn't receive a new plan from Star Ring, but we received a call from Linda. She asked to meet me alone. I originally wanted to refuse, but Jessie said, "Go meet her. Some things need to be clarified in person to be truly over." I thought about it and agreed. We met at the coffee shop downstairs from the hotel. She was already there when I arrived. She was dressed plainly today, in a beige sweater, with little makeup, and looked a little haggard. "What would you like to drink?" I asked nothing. She shook her head. "Duke, can we talk?" "Aren't we talking now?" My tone was flat. She choked on my words, and a trace of embarrassment flashed across her face. "I apologize for what happened at yesterday's meeting," she said in a low voice. "Our plan was indeed not prepared thoroughly enough." "It's not your fault," I said. "It's your entire team that lacks the most basic respect and understanding for our game and our company. I know." She bit her lip. "We will come up with a new plan. I guarantee that it will satisfy you. That's your company's business. You don't need to guarantee it to me." My coldness and alienation made her a little helpless. "Duke." She looked up, and that familiar moisture returned to her eyes. "Are you still blaming me?" I looked at her and suddenly felt a little funny. "Blaming you? Linda, are you overestimating yourself? In your eyes, am I still supposed to be the Duke who would wag his tail and run over whenever you crooked your finger?" I leaned forward slightly, staring in her eyes. "Did you think that these past 2 years, me starting a company and making games, was just so that one day I could impress you and ask you to come back to me?" My words were like knives, one by one, stabbing in her heart. Her face turned whiter and whiter. You're wrong. I withdrew my gaze, leaned back on the sofa, and my tone returned to calm. I'm doing all this just for myself. To make my own life better, to realize my own value. It has nothing to do with you. I never thought we would meet again. To me, you're just a not very pleasant interlude in my life. Now, the interlude is over. So, put away that pitiful look of yours. It doesn't work on me. After I finished speaking, I stood up. If you're just looking for me to say these things, then I don't think we have anything to talk about. I have things to do. I'll be leaving first. I turned and left, without the slightest bit of attachment. Behind me, there was a suppressed, faint sob. I paused, but ultimately didn't turn back. Some wounds, once scarred, shouldn't be reopened. It's better for you and better for me. I thought things would end there. Unexpectedly, the next night, Linda actually found my hotel room. I opened the door and saw her standing in the doorway, her eyes red and swollen, holding a thermos. She saw me and clutched the things in her hand nervously. I made you some porridge. Your stomach was always bad when you used to stay up late. I looked at her, expressionless. Is there anything else? Can I come in and talk? She looked at me pleadingly. I stepped aside to let her in. She put the thermos on the table and stood there awkwardly, like a child who had done something wrong. Duke, I know you probably won't believe anything I say. She took a deep breath, as if summoning a great deal of courage, but the reason I left back then, it wasn't what you think. Oh, I raised my eyebrows, folded my arms, and looked like I was all ears. I wasn't using you. That night, it wasn't just some casual goodbye for me either. Her voice was trembling slightly. That night was the bravest and most reckless thing I've ever done in my life. And then, after being reckless, you disappeared without a trace. Without even an explanation. I couldn't explain. She raised her voice excitedly. My dad was going to marry me off to someone I didn't like, for the sake of their company's business. I fought against it, but it didn't work. The only way I could do it was to run away. Going to Country M was something I planned a long time ago. I applied to schools, got my visa. Everything was done in secret. I didn't dare tell you. I was afraid of implicating you with my dad's methods. If he knew about you, he wouldn't let you go. I listened quietly, without any ripples in my heart. I had seen too many of these dramas about wealthy families on television. So, that night, you just wanted to leave yourself some good memories before you left? I said sarcastically. Her face turned white in an instant. No, it's not like that. She argued anxiously. I like you, Duke. I like you in college. But at that time, I was already with Leo. I couldn't. Enough. I interrupted her. Does it even matter what you're saying to me now? I walked up to her, looked down at her. Linda, do you think that as long as you shed a few tears, say a few words about being forced, I'll be soft-hearted, I'll forgive you, and then like a fool, I'll go back to you? I didn't. You didn't? I sneered. Then why are you looking for me now? Don't tell me you just want to explain the misunderstanding for back then. We're all adults here. Don't be so naive. You're the project director of Starring now. I'm your client. You want to win this project, so you're here to play the emotional card with me. That's your real purpose, right? She was speechless, her lips trembling, unable to say a word. Your story is very touching. I patted her on the shoulder, my tone full of mockery. Unfortunately, it doesn't move me. Take the porridge back with you. My stomach is very good now. I have someone responsible for my healthy eating habits. I don't need you to worry about it. I opened the door and made a pleased gesture. Walk slowly. I won't see you off. Linda looked at me in despair, tears finally bursting. She walked past me, carrying the insulated lunchbox that hadn't been opened the entire time, like a wandering ghost. I closed the door, leaned against it, and exhaled a long breath. A sense of indescribable relief filled my heart. It turned out that true letting go wasn't about forgetting or hating. It was about being able to look at her standing in front of you again, without a single ripple in your heart. You could calmly, even with a touch of pity, appreciate her performance, and then, decisively, turn around and leave. The next day, Xinhuan sent a new cooperation proposal. It had to be said, Linda was indeed a capable person. The new proposal, in terms of resource investment and promotional strategy, was several levels better than the previous version. They even proactively conceded a few percentage points of profit. The sincerity was definitely there. Jesse came to me with a proposal. What do you think? The proposal itself is fine, I said, very professional and very sincere. So what's your decision? She looked at me. I pondered for a moment. From a business perspective, Xinhuan was still the best choice. Their channels and experience were unmatched by other companies. but the thought of having frequent work contact with Linda for the next few years made me uncomfortable. I don't want to work with her, I said directly. Jessie seemed to have anticipated my answer. She smiled and pulled another document from the folder. Take a look at this. I took it. It was a cooperation proposal from another distribution company, Glory Games. The proposal wasn't as flashy as Xinhuan's, but the core terms were very solid, and they also offered very sincere resources. Glory Games is a rising star, with strong momentum. I know their CEO very well. He's a very decisive young man, Jessie said. Although their experience isn't as good as Xinhuan's, I believe their execution will be excellent. Most importantly, she looked at me. Word by word, I don't want you to be unhappy. A warm feeling washed over me. Jessie, this is a company project. It shouldn't be based on my personal feelings. No, she interrupted me. The company is yours and mine. If a project makes the company's core founder feel troubled and uncomfortable, then the partnership itself is problematic. We make games to create happiness. We start companies to realize dreams. If we have to make ourselves miserable to make money, then how are we different from the people we used to hate? Her words struck a chord in my heart. Yes, I was no longer the poor kid who had to bow down for a few dollars. I had the right and the ability to choose a way that made me comfortable. Okay, I nodded. Let's choose glory. Okay, Jessie snapped her fingers. I'll reply to them now. She walked to the door, then turned back and winked at me. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Glory Game CEO is a handsome guy and single. I was stunned for a moment, then laughed at that woman. Less than 10 minutes after sending the reply to Xinhuan, my phone rang. It was Linda. I hung up directly. She called again. I hung up again, then blacklisted her. One smooth motion without hesitation. The world was quiet. That afternoon, we signed a cooperation agreement with Glory Games. At the signing ceremony, I met the legendary CEO. He was indeed young and handsome. With remarkable conversation skills, he praised our game endlessly and expressed full confidence in the future cooperation. The whole process was very pleasant. In the evening, to celebrate the partnership, Jessie suggested going for a drink. At the hotel bar again, we found a quiet corner to sit down. To us, for making another right decision, Jessie raised her glass. To you, I clinked glasses with her. Thank you, Jessie. Here we go again. She rolled her eyes. If you really want to thank me, can't you be a bit more original? Like? She rolled her eyes, leaned closer, and lowered her voice. Give yourself to me? I choked on my drink and coughed. She laughed at my disheveled appearance. Just kidding, look how scared you are. Looking at her bright smile, something was quietly brewing in my heart. In the past 2 years, we had started a business together, stayed up all night together, faced difficulties together, and shared joys together. She was my most tacit partner, my strongest supporter, and also the person who understood me the most. It seemed that I had never really looked at her seriously as a woman. Jessie, I looked in her eyes and called her name seriously. She stopped laughing and looked at me too. In the dim light of the bar, her eyes were surprisingly bright. I felt my heart racing, if I were serious? Jessie froze. The smile on her face slowly disappeared, replaced by an expression I had never seen before, a mixture of surprise and a hint of nervousness. Duke, you. I like you, Jessie. I interrupted her, saying the words out loud. After saying it, I felt calmer. Not admiration between partners, not reliance between friends. It's the kind of liking a man has for a woman. I looked at her, baring my heart to her. For the past 2 years, all my energy has been focused on the game. I thought I didn't have the time or the right to think about anything else, but in fact, you were already in my heart. It was you who gave me hope when I was about to give up. It was you who showed me the way when I was confused. It was also you who pulled me out when I was trapped in the past. I don't know if it's love, but I know I want to be with you. I want to wake up and see you every morning. I want to share all my joys and sorrows with you. I want to have more interactions with you besides work. The bar was quiet. My voice was particularly clear in the soft music. Jessie just looked at me. Without saying a word, her eyes slowly filled with a layer of mist. I panicked a little. Am I too sudden? She shook her head, and then suddenly smiled. That smile was like sunlight after rain, bright and warm. Not sudden, she sniffled, her voice choked with emotion. I've been waiting for these words for 2 years. My brain buzzed. You. Why do you think I invested in you in the first place? She rolled her eyes at me, but her eyes were smiling. Just because of that messy sketch you drew, and that game dream that sounded impossible? I'm a businessman, Duke. I don't make investments without returns. Investing in your game was the riskiest business I've ever done. And investing in you, she reached out and covered the back of my hand with hers, is betting everything I have. I turned my hand over and held hers. Her palm was warm. Then I will definitely make sure you make a fortune. I looked at her and solemnly promised. Her smile widened, but tears stubbornly fell. Idiot, she scolded. I pulled her into my arms and held her tight. She smelled faintly of shampoo, which smelled very nice. At this moment, my heart was unprecedentedly calm and content. It turned out that happiness wasn't about reaching for the moon in the sky. It was about having someone who was willing to turn a desert into a garden with you. Just then, an out-of-place voice sounded behind us. Duke? My body stiffened. I was too familiar with this voice. I let go of Jesse and turned around. Linda was standing not far from us, looking at us with a deathly pale face. In her hand, she was still holding her phone, the screen lit, as if she had just finished a call. She probably hadn't given up and had come looking for me again, but she never expected to see such a scene. Her gaze moved from my face to Jesse's face, and finally landed on my hand, still holding Jesse's. That gaze was like a poisonous needle. You are together? She asked, her voice trembling. I didn't answer, just tightened my grip on Jesse's hand. My attitude had already explained everything. Why? As if unable to accept this fact, she took a step forward. Why her? We've known each other for so many years. I thought, in your heart, I was the most special one. You are indeed special. Jessie suddenly spoke, her voice cold, completely different from the Jessie I usually knew, especially selfish, especially self-centered. You. Linda was choked speechless. Miss Linda, do you misunderstand the word special? Jessie stood up and blocked me, like a mother lion protecting her cub. You thought you gave him a little ambiguous hope, abandoned him when he needed you most, and then came back a few years later to cry and tell him your difficulties, and he would be grateful and return to your side? What do you take him for? A pet to be summoned and dismissed at will? I'm telling you, Duke is not. He is a talented, dignified man who deserves to be loved and knows how to love. He deserves the best, and you don't deserve him. Each of Jesse's words was like a resounding slap in the face, hitting Linda hard. Linda's body swayed. She looked at me, her eyes full of despair and unwillingness. Duke, tell me, this isn't true. She was still making a final struggle. I looked at her without a trace of pity in my heart. I pulled Jessie over and, in front of Linda, lowered my head and kissed her lips. The kiss was light and gentle, but it was like a brand, declaring my choice and completely shattering Linda's last fantasy. Linda stared blankly at us, the light in her eyes slowly fading. She didn't say anything, turned around, and stumbled out of the bar. I watched her disappearing back, my heart completely calm. Jessie raised her head and touched my face. It's over, she said. Yeah, I nodded, looking in her eyes. It's over. The old story had turned the page, and our story had just begun. The cooperation with Glory Games went very smoothly. After the overseas version of Lost Era was launched, it also achieved great success, even more popular than in China. The company's market value increased tenfold. Jessie and I also became an enviable couple in the industry. We worked together, we lived together. She would accompany me to stay up late testing new versions, and I would leave a light on for her and make a bowl of hot noodles when she came home late from a meeting. Our relationship was not earth-shattering, but in the ordinary daily life, it became deeper and deeper. A year later, I proposed to her on a very ordinary day. I didn't prepare a grand ceremony. No flowers, no diamond ring. Just when she was accompanying me to work overtime until late at night again, and fell asleep on the table, I took out a program for a ring that I wrote with game code and projected it onto the holographic projection in front of her. The virtual ring slowly rotated in the air, emitting a soft light. She woke up, saw this scene, and was stunned. I knelt on one knee, looking at her. Jessie, you follow me when I had no car or house. Now I want to give you my car and my house. My company shares me, everything in my future. Are you willing to marry me? She looked at me and cried with a smile. I do. We got married. The wedding was very simple. Only the closest family and friends were invited. Zach is my best man, got drunk and hugged me, crying that I was the person he admired most in his life. I smiled and hugged Jessie in her wedding dress. I knew that the luckiest thing in my life was not making a successful game, not having $1 billion fortune. It was meeting her. Regarding Linda, I also heard some news later. I heard that after we rejected Star Ring, she was transferred from the core project team and became a marginal figure. I heard that she was unwilling, resigned from Star Ring, and wanted to start her own business, but failed. Later, there was no more news of her. She was like a shooting star, briefly streaking across my life, leaving a scar, and then completely disappearing into the vast sea of people. I sometimes wondered if she hadn't left back then. If she had chosen to stay after that night, would there have been a different ending between us? But there is no if in this world. Missing is missing. I am very happy now. That's enough. On our second wedding anniversary, Jesse and I went skiing in Switzerland in a restaurant at the top of the snow mountain. We met Leo, that is, Linda's ex-boyfriend who she used to love so deeply. He was a little fatter and more weathered than he was in college, and he was accompanied by a blonde woman and a mixed-race child. It looked like a happy family. He obviously recognized me too and smiled a little awkwardly. We just nodded without talking. In the evening, Jesse and I lay in front of the fireplace in the hotel. What do you think Linda would think if she knew he was so happy now? Jesse suddenly asked. I don't know, I shook my head. Maybe she's like, oh, a long time ago. Yeah, Jesse snuggled into my arms. By the way, husband, I received an email today. Work email? No, she took out her phone and opened a page for me to see. It's a submission, submitted to our newly established independent game support fund. I took it over and saw that it was a game proposal. The name of the game was Don't Miss. The proposal was a bit rough, but the core idea was very interesting. It tells the story of a girl who makes choices in different parallel universes, trying to make up for the mistakes she made in the past. But each time, it leads to an even worse ending, a story about missing and redemption. On the last page of the proposal, I saw the producer's name. There was only one name, Linda.